Hey everyone, and welcome back to another FBS college logo ranking, where today we are taking a look at the Mountain West Football Conference. I actually grew up in Montana, so this is one of my all-time favorite college football conferences. All these teams play out in the West, as the name of the conference should imply. And there are some fantastic logos in this conference. This was one of the most difficult rankings that I put together, and I spent a full 24 hours looking at this list by the time it was finished to confirm that this was indeed how I wanted to rank these. But even then, I know that I run the risk of creating some enemies and making some new friends with this list, as I do in every single video. So I encourage you at the end of this video to go ahead and let me know which logos you appreciate the most and which teams in the Mountain West you love to watch. We're going to rank a total of 14 teams today because the Mountain West and the remainder of the Pac-12, aka the Pac-2, Washington State and Oregon State, have agreed to a temporary scheduling at least through the 2024 upcoming season here. So the teams that actually represent the Mountain West in football are bound to maybe change in the next couple years. But until then, we're going to have these 14 teams going up against each other in the 2024 to 25 football season. So let's go ahead and get right into it, as always going from what I consider the worst to the first, which today is going to give us at number 14, UNLV, the University of Nevada at Las Vegas. I want to just go ahead and say right off the bat, I love the colors of this logo with that popping red and the black. It's a really safe bet on colors, and that red really shines through. And the font looks pretty nice. I like the curve on it. You know, again, we're starting at the last, in this case, the last logo in this conference, all the way here at the very tail end at 14. And I gotta say, it's not terrible. And the actual rebel guy that represents UNLV, I think, is a lot more interesting than the actual text that they use as a primary logo here. He's got this like really cartoony Sam Elliott thing going on with a big goofy hat, a mustache, and like a giant cleft chin, and it just has a ton of characterization, and I'm a huge fan of that. You know, they really tried to sort of rebrand this in the last few years into something that was kind of combining a whole lot. Like I see where their intentions were. You know, we've got the mountains and kind of the Vegas sign, border the welcome to Las Vegas, fabulous Las Vegas sign. Yeah, this overall really missed the mark when they tried to rebrand. This was phased out pretty quickly, and no one really caught on to this. So I will say, you know, when we're talking about logos that kind of rank on the lower end, or anytime I say there's a logo that maybe should be revamped or retooled, it's not always an easy for sure bet. You know, UNLV tried to do it, kind of missed the mark, and what we're left with is just this UNLV arched script that they're using as a primary logo. Not the best, not the worst. We've definitely talked about a lot nicer logos, a lot more interesting logos on this channel, but I think give it a few years and UNLV will try again as far as a rebrand, something to kind of like reinvent their image a little bit, make it a little bit more interesting of a logo. I mean, they do play in Allegiant Stadium where the Las Vegas Raiders play. I mean, Las Vegas is like a booming sports market now, and I think give it a few years, UNLV athletics will just kind of be revamped into something a little bit more exciting than this quite uninspired red UNLV that we can see today. And at number 13 with Utah State, again, we see another very text-heavy base logo here. Giant U in the background with the word state sort of arched across the front of it. And for me personally, it's just not interesting enough to kind of carry with it any kind of memorability or excitement, you know, especially when we kind of consider what they've used in the past. It had some much more interesting looks to it, with kind of having like a bull to represent the team name of Aggies, which they phased out in 2001 and just focused more on just the giant U to represent Utah and the word state to let you know that we're looking at Utah State. And really, there's not a ton of exciting things for me to talk about here. Utah State, very just kind of generic and a little bit too bland for my personal taste. But again, I do really appreciate the colors on this as well. That deep shade of blue, a little bit of gray, and a tiny little bit of white going on. Look really nice. And I would say the same is true for number 12, the Air Force Academy. I love the bold blueness of this logo. I think that looks great. And beyond that, it's not really giving us a whole lot to work with here. We do just have like kind of a nice general catch-all block font for Air Force, AF. Air Force Academy is home of the Falcons, and they have definitely implemented a lot more Falcon imagery into their logo over the years. And I especially love what we're looking on the top right corner between 1963 and 1994. That Falcon logo with the lightning in its talons is one of the coolest vintage throwback logos that we've talked about on this channel. It's not even close. And honestly, all those Falcons have a bit of lightning as a common denominator between them, which is something Air Force has carried as like a secondary logo. We see that on their helmets, the lightning bolt. That is really sick. I kind of wish that they would lean into that more with that primary, you know, either the Falcon imagery or the lightning itself, instead of this just very generic AF, which again looks nice. Like there's nothing inherently wrong with it, but those secondary marks, those vintage marks, you know, the Falcon, the lightning, let's lean more into that, man. It's kind of a double whammy, a disappointment looking at this AF, knowing that the actual US Air Force logo is about 1,000 times more interesting and cool At number 11, let's take a look at Nevada. This is home of the Wolf Pack, which is in 2 words, Wolf Pack. And I'll mention why I felt the need to point that out here in a second. But, taking a look at the logo for what it is, we can see the teeth, we can see it snarling, we can see lightning, kind of like we just talked about with Air Force. We can see like lightning going up through the wolf to give it this really aggressive look. I like all the elements. They're all working for me here. The one thing that's really not working, just the text of Nevada arched across the top. I mean, that's pretty much exactly what UNLV is using as a primary. We ranked it last, just an arch of your school or team name over the top. We don't really need to see it. I wish they would incorporate Nevada in some other way if they're going to have it, if they're going to include it, which they've used in the past. They've had elements of U of N or Nevada worked in just a little bit better, a little bit more interesting than just a generic Nevada over the primary logo of that wolf. That wolf looks awesome, but Nevada, it's got to go. Get rid of the text. Did want to focus on this specific logo here, the wolf with the U of N top hat. Looks strikingly similar to a logo that we ranked at number 1 when we talked about the ACC and North Carolina State University, home of the Wolf Pack in one singular word, not split into wolf and pack. There's been a bit of a dispute really since 2007 with NC State saying to Nevada, like, hey man, your logo is freakishly similar to what we're using here. And I mean, you got to change it right away. It's just way too close, which is really kind of the biggest reason why in 2008 Nevada changed their primary logo to what we're looking at now. And while it is pretty strong overall, to me, it just hasn't hit the mark that some of those other logos that we looked at kind of had. And so personally, I think it may be time for them to kind of take a look and maybe reevaluate this logo and see what they can do, what changes they can make, on their helmet even. They just have the wolf without the text in Nevada, and half the time they kind of use a different helmet that just has a script text of wolf pack or even just simply pack. And so their primary identifier as far as like the cornerstone of their identity has kind of been lukewarm at best. It hasn't really felt that anything is truly fully set in or sank in. I still think that what we're looking at today is quite strong, but personally I just feel that there's a little bit of room for improvement. At number 10, let's take a look at San Jose State University. Kind of an underrated, underappreciated logo here. San Jose State here, historically not the strongest athletic department in the world, but I will say the consistency of their Spartan and the colors is pretty admirable here. I mean, take a look at some of the throwback logos that they've used. You can see that they have always had a strong emphasis on just kind of like a side view or even like a silhouette of a Spartan soldier with the helmet with the blue and gold that really pop. And I love what we're left with, what we're looking at today. Just the really angular and pointed helmet that we can see. And I especially love those blue and yellow, and even like white triangles to kind of make up the negative space of the blue and yellow triangles in the plume of the helmet. That's the name for like the feathery part that kind of pops out over the top, that arch over the helmet. I totally feel like this logo does not get the credit that it deserves. And kind of looking ahead here from 10 to 1, this is where it really gets difficult to sort of put these in order and rank them, because there are some great logos in this conference. And San Jose State, mad underrated, overlooked logo. This thing is awesome. At number 9, let's take a look at Fresno State, home of the Bulldogs. Again, a team name that's just a dime a dozen. Everyone is kind of named the Bulldogs here. There are just so many schools across college athletics with that nickname. But this one here kind of stands out in some of the finer details here. I love that he's got the red t-shirt on, or the red sweater, however you want to look at it. It obviously mimics kind of what Fresno State uses, like what they wear in their athletics. They definitely have a ton of red coloring in their uniforms with a little bit of white and blue trim, and that's what this Bulldog has. He's got like a blue outline, so he's got all the colors that represent the school well. Bright red tongue, I love that as well. And that big varsity F on the sleeve there for Fresno is super cool. And then we see a bright green V hanging down off of like his collar there. That V stands for the San Joaquin Valley, which is where Fresno State is located. And I just love that little detail there, that little call to kind of where the school is located and what they take pride in. The San Joaquin Valley, very well known for like it just being like an agriculture powerhouse of not even just California, but the United States in general. Just a ton of like farming, agriculture, a lot of good soil down there in the San Joaquin Valley, which is also why that V is green. As for like the Bulldog himself, there's like the meme says like every shitty school has this Bulldog mascot. I'm not saying this Fresno Bulldog looks just like that, but you can see just something about just like his bow-leggedness and his kind of goofy, cartoonish expression. Like, he does not scare me in the least. He does not look nearly as tough as he's trying to convey, especially when compared to some of the older logos that they've used. I just think that his face, that expression, does not scare me in the least. It is not that tough looking.
Let me see your war face. Sir, you got a war face? Ah! That's a war face. Now let me see your war face. Ah! You didn't convince me. Let me see your real war face. Ah! You don't scare me. Work on it. Sir, yes, sir!
Now at number 8, Oregon State. This is in fact a tough looking, mean looking logo that does kind of scare me a little bit. This is intense and freaky deaky. And, again, we mentioned at the beginning of this ranking here in the intro that the Mountain West will be taking on the remainder of the Pac-12. That's Oregon State, and coming up ahead, obviously, Washington State will be affiliate members of the West Coast Conference beginning in 2024 and 25. But again, for football, Oregon State and Washington State have done like a scheduling agreement with the Mountain West, which is why I've included them in this ranking. We are talking about like football with as far as like FBS conferences go. So Oregon State jumps in here at number 8, kind of in the middle of the pack with a banger. I love this beaver logo. It's so cool, and it's been kind of a recent revamp over what they had previously with sort of this more goofy looking beaver over the text of beavers, which I've always found really strong. I love the coloring off of this thing, black and orange, and I love how angular and swift looking he is. Like, he's got a lot of like energy and nice flow. And overall, I think Oregon State again is a sneaky underrated pick when it comes to just a tough, aggressive looking primary logo. Love Oregon State, always have. At number 7, let's take a look at Boise State. Orange and blue, very unique color combination. We don't see that enough, especially with like the white trim. I think that is just an awesome color combination that's looked great for so long, even when this campus was just a junior college, and then over time they went from a college to a university. This just gained a lot of enrollment and really blew up and expanded, especially like from their athletics. Like, their football program really kind of put the school on the map, beating Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl on some of the craziest plays in the final minutes of the fourth quarter. The Statue of Liberty, iconic. Like, Boise State football has just been, when you're talking about like small group of 5 conferences, obviously the Mountain West really shines with some of these colleges, and Boise State is a big reason why. So credit where credit is due. Many people came to know this conference as a direct result of Boise State and their ridiculous blue turf. I mean, yeah, that's definitely something unique and different, but I mean, the colors on this thing really shine through. The attitude, the aggression from the Bronco also really shine through. There's a lot to love about this, and I like that in recent years, they got rid of the Boise State text on the bottom and just kind of like curved out his neck a little bit. But I appreciate the fact that they wanted this Bronco to kind of stand alone on its own without the assistance of the Boise State, which is just kind of a testament, in my opinion, to how recognizable this program has become, from humble beginnings, from coming from a junior college in the 50s and then just exploding into the, national powerhouse program that it is today. I love it. Never get tired of looking at this awesome logo. At number 5, let's take a look at Hawaii, home of the Rainbow Warriors here. It's kind of more of like an affiliate school when we're talking about the Mountain West, because their primary conference is the Big West, but they do play in the Mountain West for football. Again, this is a football ranking, so that's why we have them in here. Hawaii has always done it right. They've got a ton of throwback logos to look at and appreciate here. They've always been known as the Rainbow Warriors. They still are, and I gotta say, I do miss all the color that used to be in their primary logo here, especially, if we look at this logo specifically with the white UH and the rainbow popping out of it. This is probably one of my all-time favorite logos in college football, and I love that Hawaii brought this back a couple years ago when they played Ohio State. One of the best uniforms in all of college football. I'd probably put this in top 5 best uniforms ever worn in college football. And the primary logo that we're looking at here, the green H for Hawaii, and we've got kind of like a tribal totem pole design on either side of the H, and then the bar across the middle. It's not like a perfectly horizontal bar. It's actually supposed to represent a wave, which is why there's like an arch in the middle of the H to kind of connect the two totem designs. And I gotta say, it's just a banger, for a single letter to represent your school, just an H for Hawaii. All of the little intricate details going in this to give it a sense of place and representation for what it is and what it represents. It's so well done. It truly is. Shout out Hawaii, shout out Rainbow Warriors. Sick logo. At number 5, let's take a look at the New Mexico Lobos, a logo that is just bursting with personality and characterization. I mean, quite literally, this has like kind of like an emblem look to it with like a drop down shadow. So it looks like this Lobo, this wolf is literally popping out at you. Like, you're forced to just stare this thing right in the eyes. And, the first thing you see is like the eyes, the teeth, which are very sharp and angular, much like just the rest of it. The shading on this is super cool too. New Mexico is just absolutely firing on all cylinders with this logo. They've gone through a number of iterations with their Lobo logo, which is kind of fun to say. It's always looked good. It's always looked really strong. That top row that we can see here looks a little kind of like sketchy, to say the least. Took them a few years to kind of flesh out what they wanted their Lobo to look like, but they definitely, they finally got it right when they changed to this look around 2008, and the rest is history. This is definitely one of the most intense mascot logos that we've seen, as far as like just the energy, the ferociousness coming from that logo. As I'm looking at this, recording this down, I feel like he's just gonna pop out of the screen and tear my face off, and I don't want that. So we're gonna move on from one banger logo to the next at number 4 here with Colorado State. A much kind of more toned down look to it. Like, he definitely, this ram here definitely does have like a stateliness, a presence to it, where it does have this fierce toughness to it, but it's a little bit more stoic, it's a little bit more reserved. All the energy from him is kind of radiating out of his eyes there. Like, he does look very fierce, but it's in kind of like a more like older, wiser kind of look to it, if that makes sense. Like, especially doing a direct comparison from the crazy aggressiveness of that New Mexico logo. Love the colors on this, love the symmetry as well. And, you know, Colorado State doing something we've seen a while now with teams named Ram or something to that effect, as far as having like kind of the Ram horns in their helmet. I mean, their uniforms look fantastic. The actual Ram logo itself looks fantastic, and it always has. I mean, they've gone through some pretty awesome looks in the past here. Colorado State, again, we're talking about like sneaky sleeper picks for some pretty awesome logos. Colorado State has got to be in that conversation. This logo is incredible. And guys, if you're enjoying this content, I encourage you to go ahead and like the video, subscribe if you're new here, and stick around to the end, because I'm curious to hear again what your favorite schools, what your favorite logos are in this conference. Let's go ahead and crack into our top 3 here with San Diego State University, home of the Aztecs. Now, this logo right here is doing what I love so much by showing off a unique font with an SD to represent San Diego and using imagery to represent what the team name is. I mean, we can see kind of like a spearhead going on either side of the D to kind of give us more of like that Aztec imagery that the team name is known as. I mean, they're the Aztecs. And then also using the colors to represent what the coloring of the school is, you know, that big red S, that black D, a little bit of white trim going on. We can see it all. We can see like a really nice stylized lettering. We can see the Aztec kind of mascot integrated, and we can see this awesome coloring. This is just perfect. This is a perfect logo for a lettered look. It is just so simple and clean, especially if we compare to kind of what they were using in the past here. They obviously have wanted to kind of lean into that Aztec imagery, but the logos, I mean, they were just busy at best, which I think looked great, but the nice way to say is that they were just way too busy. And so in 2002, that's kind of when they rolled out this SD look, and they cleaned it up in 2013, got rid of the word state, kind of eliminated some of the gold in there, and just kind of made it more of a red, black, and white. And that cleanup job that they gave it literally made this one of the best logos in college athletics. This SD for San Diego State, so incredibly well done. It's perfect in every way. So how can there be 2 better logos than this? Well, I mean, there's perfect, and then there's just perfect. And at number 2, we got to go with Washington State, home of the Cougars. Oh my God. This is, again, it becomes really difficult to explain why these logos are so great, but we try, and that's why you clicked on. You wanted to hear me talk about it, and I will. So Washington State University, you know, they call this WSU, WSU. We can see those letters in this cougar. You know, it's kind of more than meets the eye here, because if you look at it for any longer than just a couple seconds, you can see the W, the S, and the U that take place in this logo. There's a reason why, if you watch my Big Sky video, that we ranked Eastern Washington so high, because that EWU formed the eagle in Eastern Washington, and this WSU formed this cougar logo for Washington State. There's something going on over there in Eastern Washington that they have really nailed in their logos, and there's just really nothing else like it except for those 2 schools, Eastern Washington and Washington State, that have the letters to kind of represent the mascot. It's just so cool. It's flawless. It's so perfectly well done. I mean, they really didn't have much of an identity before this logo to give Washington State, the Cougars, anything to kind of stand out or shine. Like some of their old vintage logos, they're fun, they're interesting, they're cool to look at, and that's all well and good, but I mean, my God, this WSU, the Cougs are killing it. Wazoo, one of my favorite logos of all time. And again, we went from perfect to perfect, and now we got to talk about number 1, perfect-ist. And that's going to give us Wyoming University, home of the Wyoming Cowboys, down there in Laramie, playing in Laradice, Wyoming. Oh my God, this is like, I mean, it's number 1 in this league. It's number 1 in this conference. It's number 1 in my heart. This has got to be one of the best logos out there in all of college athletics, regardless of division. I mean, this is a logo that should never change. You know, I'm going to show you up on the screen here. We're looking at some like kind of like older or even like alternative logos as kind of like secondary marks. Wyoming really kind of leans into this logo. This is a logo that transcends the university and represents the entire state as a whole. I mean, this truly is the one in Division I school in Wyoming. There's really nothing else outside of this. Like, there's no Wyoming State, there's no Wyoming Thermopolis or like a secondary branch of the university. This is the one university in the state of Wyoming, and the symbol that they're using, the logo rather, is what you see on the license plates, is what we see on the U.S. quarter, you know, when they did all 50 states. It's a logo that was introduced from the Wyoming National Guard in World War I just think there's nothing cooler than that, truth be told. You know, this is like the one university again in the entire state for the university to use this logo. It's a no-brainer. It shouldn't be anything else. This is the primary identifier for the entire state. It's got this Wild West vibe to it, obviously with a cowboy on a bronking horse. It represents everything there is about the vastness, the wildness of the state of Wyoming, even down to the colors. I mean, again, that brown and yellow, I think, are the perfect representation of kind of like an old west kind of wildness and ruggedness and toughness that Wyoming offers. Clearly, I can't see any other argument over this being the best in the Mountain West. But again, this video was so much fun to put together because there are some incredible logos in the Mountain West, and I would love to hear your guys' opinion on what you think the best logos are, what your favorite schools are, and any conferences you guys would like to see down the road. We are going to be wrapping up our FBS series here in the next few weeks. We just have the Sun Belt and the SEC to talk about. So again, subscribe if you'd like to see those. Comment down below your favorite schools, your favorite logos, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed. And if you didn't, that's cool. I appreciate you hanging out all the same. This was fun to put together, and appreciate you guys clicking. Thanks for hanging out. We will catch you in the next video.